This government policy to shut us in our homes, to stop us meeting people, stop us mingling and spreading the virus, all this actually goes against human nature, unless you're a hermit like me. Humans are social animals. Keeping them cooped up, as we're going to be cooped up, is going to be a huge stress on a lot of people, on top of the stress of losing maybe their jobs, their savings, even their house. So what can you do about it? Joining me is author and psychiatrist Tanveer Ahmed. Tanveer, good to see you again. This policy of social distancing, how much stress do you think that's going to put on the average person?
Look, Andrew, in parallel with the economic recession, there's something of a social recession, isn't there? We're stuck at home, we can't have physical contact. It's also exacerbated the generational divide as we're kind of self-isolating a lot of grandparents. It's obviously causing a huge amount of strain. I think, sure, people are trying to use technology. Now, an interesting point I want to make, Andrew, mental health is actually a good place to sort of think about coronavirus and its effect on the culture. Now, in recent decades, mental health has been a big topic. And it's partly we've had this mix of great prosperity and a kind of lack of shared values, shared purpose. So one thing coronavirus has done, it's given us a real sense of shared threat. And I wanted to sort of say, many of my patients who you'd think might get worse in this situation aren't necessarily, because they actually have this sense of shared threat, whereas normally mental health is individualised distress. So that's something I don't think I necessarily expected. Now, coming back to the effects on the home, absolutely, especially Australia. It's not just, I think, like a comment on wider society. Australians are outdoor people. Like, I just know it's such a feature of our culture, being out and about and playing sport, etc. And putting a dampener on that is really, we're not easily finding substitutes for that. I know that home gyms are up and people are doing what they can, trying to have Skype dinner parties and Instagram, etc. But it's obviously causing a huge amount of stress. Look, I want to give a bit of advice on what people can do to minimise that. So one, we're routine creatures, we really are. We have to set up new routines within the home. That includes kind of don't sleep in too much, have some things you do at the same time almost every other day. And that might include, okay, we'll have lunch, we'll go outside, maybe we'll have some sort of non-work chat at a certain time of day, and likewise at the end of work. Set up a new set of rituals, ideally healthy. Don't start drinking before midday. I know there's a lot more people drinking.
No TV during the daytime is my rule.
There was a lot of people watching TV.
Unless you're watching Sky. Unless you're watching Sky. Have it on all the day. No, I want to say this is really going to cause a lot of people a lot of... it's very disconcerting for a lot of people. Now, Tanveer, we've actually seen, I hear what you say. People are thinking, well, I'm not paranoid because they're after everyone now, so it's not just me. This shared sense of purpose that you say, or the shared sense of threat, we've actually seen so many people, so many Australians behaving badly and selfishly, hoarding, fighting over toilet rolls, not staying at home if they're sick. Now, I would have liked to think that in a crisis people do come together, but is that what history tells us?
In fact, it doesn't, Andrew. You're right. Like, historically, pandemics do not necessarily improve social cohesion. Now, we may not be in the pointy end of this, but we've obviously seen some scenes around toilet paper, groceries, etc. Traditionally, because pandemics tend to breed mutual distrust and suspicion, and arguably, social distancing can increase that. I know, certainly working in hospitals, everyone walking in, as much as you want to help people, you've got a much stronger sense that everyone is a potential threat. So historically, pandemics actually hurt social cohesion. Now, it may be different this time, especially if our resources remain strong. We're eating, we have our energy, etc., and we can share the fight. But traditionally, it's not something that builds social cohesion. And I must say, it will be quite interesting, and I don't have a particular opinion on this, given we live in such a multi-ethnic society now, which wasn't the case, say, 100-odd years ago in the time of Spanish flu, I think there'll be quite different behaviour patterns. And we've already seen that with some of the behaviour around hoarding. I think many cultures come from, say, civil war or places where they don't trust governments to necessarily, have their supplies. So I think that will be an interesting component too. Like, we talk about our society, how cohesive.
I agree. I think you put a finger on a phenomenon that many people do not actually want to discuss. There are particular cultures that are sending, that where you see when the Home Affairs Minister says a lot of people are sending supplies overseas, he means China, for instance. And, you know, that's one of the things. I don't know that we are building that sense of mutual obligation that is good in a healthy society, at least mutual obligation to the rest of us here in Australia. That is something that we will see work out in this crisis. Tanveer Ahmed, thank you so much indeed for your time.